What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. The more I'm reading about the new 2024 player handbook, the more I'm like, nah, I'm not getting it. Especially now that people can actually talk about the books and what's inside the books and review them. It really doesn't look that good. Like they should just made it as another material like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything Part 2 or something. Just leave it at that. Enough about the player handbook. Let's talk about current books and current content and current games that we have going on with RPG horror stories for today. Worst DM I've ever had. This was many years ago. It was my intro to Dungeons & Dragons. I knew the concept was simple. Make a character, roleplay, roll some dice. DM was a friend of mine, so I figured why not and give it a shot. It was a mistake. It started as at level 1, and the party consisted of me, rogue, female friend, paladin, and male friend, fighter. The setting was simple, as it was a lot of the first-time players in a group, the exception being the male friend who played since 3.5e. We started in a tavern, somehow already knowing each other even though we all had different backgrounds. It wasn't explained how we did. There was a shady guy in a corner who told us of haunting calls in the nearby woods that I only heard in the middle of the night. Our mission was clear: solve the mystery of the screams. We rested in the tavern until nightfall hit and ventured into the woods. Eventually, we came upon a crypt with a couple of skeletons roaming around inside. Not bad for a first encounter, but DM did always favor paladins and some secret conversation with the player, as if the DM was their god. Discovering the weakness and somehow had a radiant damage. Mind you, we're all at level 1, and paladins don't get radiant until level 2. I think it's perfectly fine if you have like a paladin player or a cleric player or a warlock or whatever, somebody that receives their gifts and magic from the divine gods and stuff, the divine being, you know, some more of that divine connection. I think it's kind of cool to have that specific connection and establish that. Maybe figure out how your paladin or cleric or warlock interacts with your divine or fiendish patron or whatever kind of patron you have. If you receive your power from somewhere else, from the greater being or greater hellish being down below or greater out space, it's cool to have that sort of connection between how the player, paladin, cleric, or warlock interact with their greater or hellish or space deity. But to get somebody cheap little hints like, hey, your divine god tells you skeletons are weak to radiant, ooh, you know, that's kind of cheap. I mean, unless everybody just knows that. You could just have people just roll history or better yet, arcana and be like, oh yeah, I kind of know about skeletons. I learned about it along the way. Skeletons are pretty weak to radiant damage, but we don't have anybody here doing radiant damage. I wonder how we're gonna do this. You know, whatever. I chalked it up to me being a new player and maybe he threw us a bone. Combat ended in one round. The paladin did all the damage, but we continued on. In the crypt was a mask. I'm a rogue, so I thought it would be in character to inspect for traps and steal the mask. No traps, and I took the mask and put it on. It was cursed. It was called the Mask of Love and automatically made me fall in love with everyone of the opposite gender. We all playing male characters, so it wasn't a big deal, or so I thought. We left the crypt, and that's when we hears it. A woman's voice, screaming blood-curdling screams somewhere nearby. My character was forced to chase after the sound, as the curse made him fall in love with the woman's voice. So I ran. Immediately following that, a wrath manifested and cut my head off. No saving throw of any kind, no death saving throws, no hope of coming back to life. And hopefully no hope of you coming back to this stupid game, because if suddenly out of nowhere you just get decapitated without a save or anything, what's the point? If you killed in a cutscene, what's the point? Outraged, the senior member of the party spoke up and said this was utter BS, and our options were find a cleric in a nearby city and pay him 5,000 gold for true resurrection, or roll another character. This is our session 0. There was no session 1. After a few months, he offered a DM for me again, saying that homegrown, I'm assuming homebrew maybe, I think they mean homebrew, was encouraged because he had some cool ideas that he wanted to share with us. I thought it was over and decided that because I'm a more experienced player, I'll give it another shot. The group contained me, level 1 Dragoon from Final Fantasy, my wife, level 1 Reaper, uses full-length scythe, and a buddy of mine who had never played before, level 1 Sorcerer. Wait a minute, are they using the Final Fantasy 14 homebrew conversion thing? Because that sounds dope. I need to come back and restart my campaign again, because that'd be amazing. Anyway, let's continue. He dropped us on top of a tower during a freaking war between goblins and humans. When I say war, there are easily 500 goblins surrounding the castle. So it begins our one and only session with this DM again. We attempt to fight our way down the tower and into the courtyard. Sorcerer was trying his best with melee spells, Shocking Grasp, Acid Spray, etc., but was ultimately cut down after fondling a goblin chief with Mage Hand because he attempted to steal the chief's weapon and failed a stealth check. He was subsequently murdered by said chief. Whoa. Stealth check does not mean you fail to steal something or else just fondle somebody. That's not what it is. No, it means like maybe your hand was noticed flying around. Maybe the chief noticed your hand was trying to steal and like, oh, somebody trying to steal my loot, mine, you know, something like that. Not fondling somebody, Jesus Christ. He was subsequently murdered by said chief. Reaper was able to manage a critical hit and cut the chief's head clean off. We ran down the rest of the tower where we got bum rushed by a horde of goblins commanded by a captain. Reaper went down next, but not before attempting to have her character have unsolicited fun time with a group of goblins. What the hell? I challenged the captain to a duel. As a dragoon, one of my starting feats was being able to triple your jump distance and stay in the air, slowing your descent. My plan was to jump, ready an attack, and land on the captain the following turn. We decided to take a quick smoke break, we left the table, and I talked to the other players about the plan. I was going to jump, stay in the air to pose disadvantage, and land the following turn, dealing 1d8 plus fall damage. This is basically going to be the strategy. I'm not ashamed to say that yes, I was attempting to cheese the fight. DM heard this. So I take my jump action and wait. The captain tried to shoot me and missed. So far everything was going to plan. I launched my attack, rolled an 18 to hit, and missed. The goblin captain then launched 2 action surges, attacks me 5 times, dealing double my health and damage in a single turn. I heard how easy you thought this fight would be, so I made it harder. You just fought a level 5 champion fighter. Bet that cut you down a notch, huh? We decided to never play with this DM again. I've DM'd since, and I have been very successful as one, though not able to finish a campaign because of schedule or distance. He almost killed the game for me, but I realized that there's a lot of bad DMs out there, and I should try to be a good one. What an inspirational story. There are a lot of bad DMs out there, so you should try to be a good one. Also, to suddenly try to screw a player over for making some sort of a smart decision, I'm assuming everybody starts at level 1 or something, or maybe it's something like that, I don't know. One of the features for Dragoon of Final Fantasy D&D Homebrew is indeed the jump ability, but it's there because Dragoon of Final Fantasy 14 jumps. That's what they do. If the guy can't even hit with an 18 because DM decided to homebrew the Goblin Chief to be some sort of champion fighter level 5 just to screw the player over, just to be like, I'll show them. Yeah, I will show them and see how tough they are afterwards. Good job. You ruined it for everybody at the table and nobody wants to play with you. There's so many terrible DMs out there. Be the good DM. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. But this is a great inspiration for me to get back and restart my Final Fantasy D&D campaign, because I think that'd be really fun. Anyway, let's continue. Wasn't allowed back because my character was too secretive. The cast: me, Paladin, Problem Player, Barbarian, Problem Player 2, and DM. There were others, but they aren't too important to this story. We're kind of just bystanders. So I've been playing with the DM, Paladin, and one other for about a year before the events of this story, and we all had a good friendship going on. The Paladin player was a little averse towards me, but it was widely known that he didn't appreciate me talking with his boyfriend, the DM, for extended periods of time after session. After the campaign where I met them, the DM decided to start a homebrew isekai-style campaign with a bunch of kingdoms and political intrigue. It was really well made, and I agreed to join in on it as the rest of the group did. The Paladin asked if a friend of his, Barbarian, could join, and we were all fine because what could possibly go wrong? Session 0 rolls around, and I introduced my character as true neutral Genie Warlock, made his way as an exotic dancer, and kept his pre-isekai life a secret because he was ashamed of who he was back then. The end of the session was after a huge fight in a magic train where my character decided he was going to not fight with a bunch of strangers and instead snuck up to the first class car and chilled inside one of the rooms for the rest of the ride to their destination. This did not sit well with Paladin or Barbarian, but the rest of the players were fine with it since there weren't really much space to fight anyway. Most of the players and the DM said they were okay with a non-good aligned character, who just kinda did whatever as long as I didn't actually put the party in danger.
Hi there, editing Morrow stepping in because apparently recording Morrow literally had nothing to say about the story, which is kinda weird. Maybe I was just tired and wasn't paying attention too much, I'm not fully sure. But anyway, what we have here is a brand new party forming, and one of the members, our OP, making a character that's a little bit more about themselves and is kind of choosing to step away from fights and kind of just chill in the cabin while everybody else does the fighting. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a selfish character. Selfish characters can work really fine in the campaign as long as everybody is perfectly cool with it and the player is not going against the party and in fact is playing well with the party. Because after all, you can make an edgelord, an anime protagonist, whatever kind of tropey worst character you can think of, as long as they work well with the party and they cooperate with the party. I guess we're missing a little bit of the context of how difficult the fight is, but if then not contributing to the fight and making the fight more difficult, that'd be kind of a dick move because you're not helping with the party, you're not working well with the party. But if the fight was trivial and having extra people there was kind of like too many cooks in one kitchen situation where just too many people just blocking up entrances or blocking up movement for each other, I could see how stepping away from the fight and not making it as chaotic or hectic would actually be beneficial in this situation. But it really depends on a lot of background factors of was this deliberately trying to hurt the party or was removing a person from the combat order actually benefiting the party because they would have less things to worry about and less people blocking up the movement on the train. I don't think the OP is doing anything against the party because the other players didn't mind having somebody stepping away. I'm gonna earn the side of the other players, and if they didn't really mind having one player step out, then it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, as long as the context is they're not hurting the party or doing anything antagonistic against the party, hopefully we get more context down the line, but let's continue with the story.
Fast forward a few sessions with nothing of note happening, and my character once again decides to sort of dip from what's going on, non-combat, to do his own thing. At this point, we are high enough in levels that I had taken the aspect of the moon feature, so my character can just do stuff without having to go to sleep. This mostly consisted of meditation, talking with his patron, and just general shenanigans that ended in many laughs for most of the party, except of course Paladin and Barbarian, who hated that my character would never tell them what he was up to the night prior, but were completely okay with another character actively doing drugs.
Editor Morrow back here again. I'm not trusting what Recording Morrow said because Recording Morrow must have been tired because they're just talking out their ass. Anyway, I'm feeling there's a big communication problem here. I feel like the reason the party doesn't trust you or is seeing you as a little bit more of a shady side because you're not communicating with the party. I'm gonna say there's a massive breakdown or miscommunication happening over here because otherwise the situation A, you and the DM just exchange on what your character does, but nobody else knows what your character does unless you directly decide to tell them what your character does in no free time at night. Or B, you are talking about this out loud and everybody knows out of character what your character is doing. They just don't like the fact that your character doesn't divulge information to the other players publicly. Now, as long as no important information is being divulged, like, you know, some sort of a massive secret you uncover, or a plot, or recover a specific MacGuffin that's gonna be important for a quest. If it's literally just your character goofing around at night because they grab their feature and they literally just stay up all the time just doing nonsense and doing whatever, if it's just for fun and flavor, for other players to get mad over that, it seems a little bit silly. But that is with the context that they know what's going on and they're in the know. If the context is they don't know what you're doing and you and your GM are keeping it secret on what your character is plotting, or I guess really doing nothing, but the other players, they generally don't know what's going on, yeah, I could see how the other players might be a little bit peeved because you're not even telling them, oh, I'm not doing anything important, guys. I'm just literally goofing around and messing around. I feel like maybe there's a little bit of a miscommunication problem going on here. And I partially feel like it could be on you, but at the same time, I don't have the context. I want to say it's you, but I can't say it's you, OP. It could be that everybody knows what's going on and everybody in on the joke. Everybody knows exactly what your character's doing, but you just have Barbarian and Paladin that's like, why isn't he telling to our characters what they're doing at night? Why don't they talk to our characters, let them know exactly what sort of goofing around they've done, and just kind of building this mistrust because they don't like the way you roleplay your character. This situation could be going either way, but I could see the tension being built. If nothing is done about this, then I feel like it's gonna be like a bubble that's gonna burst, and then this game is just gonna be shattered.
Several more sessions go by, and I started to notice that the hate towards my character is getting to such a point that the DM is having trouble keeping his own anxiety over it in check. So I talk with him about retiring the character in favor of a more straightforward and honest character. He agrees, and I roll up a fighter for the next session, where he'll be introduced. On the session of his introduction, my character proceeds to absolutely demolish the boss encounter mostly by himself while singing the praises of his new allies. He truly shone as the beacon of hope and strength I made him to represent, although I always made sure to try my best to keep others in the spotlight, so as to not come off as a main character syndrome guy. After some time, I noticed that Paladin Barbarian was still getting on my case about my character being a little too reserved, and I even apologized for it and made the effort to interact with the party on every occasion that presented itself without being overbearing, and it all seemed to work out for a time. Unfortunately, I discovered that their problem was not with the character, but with me instead. Anytime I wanted to do something or even suggest an alternate plan, the Paladin Barbarian quickly shot me down, and we had to do their plan, even if it was too dangerous for the party to do. We barely made it out of so many encounters that should have been easy to resolve, because Paladin and or Barbarian came up with some harebrained scheme over my character who had military training and a leadership role versus two random guys who had barely seen combat before the events of the campaign. I eventually talked to two of the DM present to try to hash out what the deal with me to see what could be resolved, which basically boiled down to, quote unquote, we'll try to be better about it. Unfortunately, I had to move shortly after that, so I gave the player and DM notice beforehand so it wouldn't be so sudden, as I would be unable to communicate for a time. Once it gets set up at my new place, I attempt to rejoin, but it never seemed to be the right time. So I just sat in on a few of the sessions, hoping the next one would be the one I'll be introduced in. No such luck. Talked to the DM and he said that he felt comfortable with the current number of players, so he would let me know when he is ready to bring it back up to include me again, and even told me he missed having my character around. If the DM misses having your character around, why not just bring your character back? If you want the player character back, just let the player play them. Simple as that. I don't know why they're delaying it, and why even make a comment of, oh, but I'm comfortable with this player amount. If you're kicking the player out, just tell them that's what's going on. If you want to put him back in, then put him back in. It really shouldn't be that difficult. I don't see what's going on here. I think maybe there might be some pressure happening with Paladin and Barbarian behind the scenes, and it's affecting the DM. That's just a theory, but I don't know. Could be. Several months passed and I lost hope of ever coming back to the campaign when I noticed that they had added a new player. I'd never left the Discord since I still talked to all of them, though there, without telling me, and just hoped I wouldn't notice. Talked to the DM and asked him if they had a problem with me specifically, since I saw that he added new players that are talking to me to bring me back in, and he told me that it was because my character was too reserved, even though I had rectified the issue long ago. I'm still convinced that Paladin and Barbarian were the ones who convinced him not to bring me back in, since they were the only ones who took issue with my characters and me, even after I made a clear effort to appease them specifically, and unfortunately, the DM is too shy and nervous to stand up to either of them, especially his boyfriend. Ah, I see. Right. Well, called it. DM has no spine, and Paladin and Barbarian probably complained to the DM so many times, oh, the character's too reserved, the character's too secretive, don't bring him back in. And because of that, even though the DM likes the player character and wants to bring him back, they will never do so because the boyfriend apparently decided to influence them in a negative way. And because the DM has no spine, they're just gonna capitulate. Dude, that is sad. I am so sorry, OP. Am I in the wrong here, or was this doomed from the start? Edit. After reading some of my comments, I agree that it sounds like an unreliable narration, but I want to keep the story as short as possible. This was almost a year's worth of sessions. We've been friends for longer than that. But I didn't want to bog down the story with unnecessary stuff. I would 100% appreciate knowing what I can make clear. I don't know, seems pretty kind of dry to me. Maybe I'm just missing some important contexts, or maybe I'm just too dumb to really think about it. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's actually a problem with you, and maybe there's something you're not telling us. That could be a possibility, obviously. But maybe the DM just has no spine, and the boyfriend told him, hey, don't bring that guy in. The DM, even though they want to bring a character in, they kind of have to capitulate to the boyfriend and say, okay, I guess I won't bring him in. Like, if it's actually that, then dude, that's actually very unfortunate. That sounds like a really bad group that you should just not interact with. Find a different group to play with at this point. If they don't want your character in, if they don't want to have you in, they'll either bring another player entirely into the situation, then what's the point of staying? Also, could be a possibility that maybe you are the problem and you're just not telling us more of the context, which, I mean, some people do end up leaving out some little things here and there. Maybe you did something on extra on the side that was a little bit too much of a problem. I would say, if the fact of the matter is that they're just making you feel left out and the purpose of leaving you out, probably best to talk to them and try to figure some sort of a solution. Or cut your losses and find a different group, because I don't think this is going to be worth it. Like, waiting for them to bring you back in and trying to have a talk with them. If nothing's working with that, just say, I'll just play with somebody else. And there we go. I know it's not the most satisfying answer. It doesn't solve anything, but some problems sometimes just not worth it dealing with. Definitely, I encourage you to try to figure it out and talk to everybody and socialize with everybody and try to figure out a solution. But if there's no solution to be found, then sometimes it's just easy just to let it go and just move on and find different people to play with. Simple as that. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.